So yeah, I think let's go ahead and get started since it is, everyone's on their lunch hour and has probably many things to do this afternoon. My name's Katie Tamulonis, and welcome to the AAPG Women's Network webinar titled The Path to Success Awards and Nominations. And the format that we're going to use is I'm moderating the event, which just means I basically get to listen to all of your experiences and stories and help facilitate questions. So I have some questions that we've developed for our panel of 5 members, which we'll introduce in a couple of minutes. But really, we'd like to have the conversation fueled by questions from the audience. So please feel free. You should have access to your microphones and be able to speak and ask questions. So we encourage that, or put them in the chat and I can relay them. So I think, and really that's my idea for the format, and the format can evolve to whatever seems to be working best. So I think right now, before we introduce our panel, just take a look at some of the upcoming AAPG Women Network events. August 12th, we have the Geology of Coffee event, and then numerous image events, which are listed here. So if you take a moment, you can jot those down. And also September 27th, it looks like we're having a book discussion on gaslighting with the author Christine Williams. So let's focus back to why we're here today. We're here to discuss the awards and nominations for AAPG. And the reason I'm the one speaking right now, is because I'm myself, along with Edith, Allison, we're co-chairs of the AAPG Women's Network Awards and Nominations Committee. And we realized, we just assumed these positions about a year ago, and realized we had a lot of questions about awards and nominations when we assumed the position. And if we have a lot of questions, then probably other people have a lot of questions, or a lot of unknowns too. So I'll just give a brief background about myself and then introduce our 5 panel members, and then we can get into some questions. So as I said, my name's Katie Tamulonis. I'm a geologist with a company called Vault 4401, and I just recently started that job. We're doing carbon sequestration. Prior to that, I worked in academia, mostly at Allegheny College, which is a liberal arts college in Pennsylvania. And prior to that, I have oil and gas experience at Shell and Noble Energy and Schlumberger. I have a bachelor's degree from Dickinson College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and a PhD from Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. So I think the next person we'd like to introduce is Gretchen Gillis, who's a geologist at Aramco Americas. Gretchen, can you give us a little bit of your background, please?
Sure. Thank you, Katie. Thanks so much for inviting me to be here. I am working for Aramco Americas in Houston. I've been here for about 12 years. I also worked for Schlumberger, and before that, a couple of US-based independent oil and gas exploration companies. I'm a graduate of Bryn Mawr College, so I bring the East Coast street cred, but I also am a proud graduate of the University of Texas at Austin, where I worked on Precambrian multiply deformed metamorphic rocks. And I look forward to this discussion because I think awards say a huge amount about the values of an organization and its members. And I also feel very strongly that we need to avail ourselves of the best and most inclusive group of leaders that we can come up with to really make a difference in serving members of AAPG and our profession. Thanks.
Right. Thanks a lot, Gretchen. Our next panel is Stephanie Woko, who is a lead reservoir geologist. Stephanie, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone, and thanks for inviting me. So I'm Stephanie Nwoko, and I'm a geologist, geomodeler, and I have 19 years experience in the oil and gas industry. So I started off my career in the UK as a modeler, working offshore in the North Sea. And then in 2011, I moved to the US, and since then I've worked for companies like Hillcorp and Premier Oilfield Group. So I'm currently taking a break because I'm doing an MBA. So I have a degree in bachelor's degree in geology, from Nigeria, University of Port Harcourt, and a master's in petroleum geosciences from Royal Holloway University. And I'm currently doing an MBA in ESA, Spain. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to discussion and to bring my experience and give my input. So thank you.
Great, thanks a lot, Stephanie. Thanks for joining us. Our next panelist is Dan Billman, who's a consulting geologist and president of Billman Geologic Consultants. Dan, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Sure. So yeah, I started Billman Geologic Consultants in 1993. It is plural. The other geologist at Billman Geologic Consultants is my wife, Pam. At least in part, the reason why I've been asked to be here today is I served as the Honors and Awards Chairman for 2 years under Denise Cox's reign of the Advisory Council, and also under Mike Party's reign of the Advisory Council. So I had to get a little deeper in the weeds on this subject than most people ever do. And so for good or for bad, that's how I ended up here.
Well, thanks, Dan. I do know that there's multiple consultants at your company, so my apologies. I didn't mean to,
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
Pam doesn't get the credit that she always deserves. So
gotcha. And our next panelist is Denise Cox, the president of Storm Energy. Denise, would you introduce yourself, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Denise Cox, president of Storm Energy, past president of the American Association of Petroleum Geoscientists. I have over 40 years of experience in the oil and gas industry, and I'm currently focused on sustainable development of resources. This includes everything from exploration of mature basins, carbon capture and storage, and identification of orphaned oil and gas wells for remediation of methane. I'm morphing my career as I am progressing toward retirement into identifying technology that can benefit our industry and other industries. And I'm looking forward to discussing awards from a perspective as not only as president, but as having served on the advisory council for 3 years.
Thanks, Denise. And last but not least, we have Edith Allison, who's my co-chair in the Women's Network for Awards and Nominations. And Edith is a consulting petroleum geologist in the DC area. Edith, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Certainly. I started in industry and then after a downturn joined the Department of Energy, where I managed research into unconventional resources. When I retired from that, I joined the AAPG as executive director or director of their GeoDC office, which provided scientific information to Congress and congressional information to members. And since that office closed, I have been writing science energy policy information.
Great, thank you, Edith. The next thing we'd like to do is just briefly show several slides that Edith's put together. I'm going to share my screen again that just outline the officer nomination process. So Edith, I'll share my screen even though you're back up?
Thank you, because I didn't get everything restarted.
No, okay. Can you see that?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, go for slide view if you would.
No worries.
Beautiful, thank you. And the next slide is, okay. This year, we are nominating for 3 positions. The AAPG President-elect, who will start in, do I have the right year? Start next July. The Vice President of Regions and Secretary. The nominations are due to AAPG by the end of August of this year. That's why we're rushing this event when most of you would rather be on vacation. Next slide, please. So the official timeline is the applications are due August 31st, and the process in which you're going to learn more about goes through an advisory council review and recommendations to the executive committee, who will announce 2 candidates for the membership to vote on. And all of this involves lots and lots of paper in consideration of many applicants and a short time frame. But in the end, members vote, and we hope you'll vote. And next slide, please. The application documents officially include a consent form. The candidate must agree to do this process. There is a resume, which is limited to 2 pages, a biography, which is more flexible than the standard resume, perhaps, in talking about yourself, also limited to 2 pages, and 3 letters of recommendation, also limited. Now, these links you could click on at a later date, but the easiest guide is to go to the AAPG website, log on, and hover over About on the homepage and slide down to officer candidates under leadership. Be sure and log into AAPG to see all the information and get the correct forms. Next page, please. Whew, that was hard. There are some limits on eligibility, and in the short version of this, you shouldn't be holding another office. If you are a candidate for vice president of sections, you need to be a member of a section. If you're a candidate for vice president of regions, you need to be a member of a region. That's a lot of text into a couple of quick words. And next slide. Thank you. We'll keep these around. Perhaps I'll put them in the chat. But if you're not a member of AAPG Women's Network, please join. And remember, you can see this recorded version on YouTube, as you can see all of the prior programs. So that's all I'm going to say, and we'll get to the important stuff, which is the experts talking.
All right, thanks, Edie. I'll stop sharing that so we can kind of have more of a, as much of a face-to-face discussion as we can these days. And we've come up with some questions, and I think maybe one question, and this is open to anyone, before we really talk about the process of the nominations in general. I was wondering if you could describe, what does holding an AAPG office or position entail? And I know each position is different, but thinking more about, time commitments and things like that, like, you know what you're getting in for before you accept a nomination? Is there anyone who's willing to discuss that? I saw Denise, or everyone. I mean, Denise, why don't you go first, and then Gretchen, and whoever.
Yes, you'll hear this theme from me continually. Before you stand for an office, decide that you have a message or a subject or a theme that you want to present to the organization to make the organization stronger, better, long-lasting. Pick your description, but you decide you have a mission. Once you decide your mission, you have to commit the time to be visible. Make no mistake, if people don't know you, it is almost impossible to get consensus in a short amount of time given, even with all the materials you submit. It really is about networking. So you have a mission. My mission was sustainable development. I knew I had to work up through the ranks. I stood for secretary, but before that, I was very interested in AAPG's education mission. I got involved with committees. I got involved with technical interest groups. I joined the foundation. I became very visible in a lot of different ways, and I got the attention of the leaders of multiple years of presidents, vice presidents, secretaries, and treasurers. So I had a bucket of people that I could go to. And it was not just people. I live in Panama City, Florida. Not a lot of name recognition here. So it was important to be able to communicate at the very start of this goal of mine to be the president of AAPG, to have a strategic path. So I would say that define your mission, define your strategic path, and network via service and leadership on the committee level, technical level, divisions. There's lots of opportunities. So that's a broad brush about what helped me get to where I'm getting. And it's a journey, and it is a major time commitment. Make no mistake, it becomes a full-time job. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So I've previously served as editor, which is a 3-year term and involves supervision of all peer-reviewed publications for AAPG and service on the executive committee. When I agreed to stand for that, I had been volunteering in publications for quite a while, chairing the publications committee, serving as an associate editor, working with other editors to understand the role. And when I agreed to be nominated, it was with the consent of my employer, because the understanding was that half of my time on the job would be committed to being AAPG editor. As it turned out, it was more work than that, although different editors have run the job in different ways. But for me, it was a pretty all-consuming thing, because you can't leave a peer-reviewed journal for more than a week and not have an avalanche when you return. I would say that in terms of skill development, it is an extraordinary opportunity, because you see how publications progress from a very raw state to, or a somewhat polished state to a highly polished state. And so observing how peer review makes science and the presentation of science better is really a fantastic opportunity. I also felt that in that particular role, there was a lot of respect for the office. I also just finished a term as AAPG president, again with the support of my employer. It was quite a different experience, because the pandemic meant that most of what we did happened virtually. And even though I did a fair amount of presentations online, the amount of travel was pretty limited, which a lot of presidents enjoy the opportunity to travel internationally. I would say that this works well if you have either you're personally wealthy or you have the support of a company behind you. I would say serving as president in that office did not come with the respect that the office of editor seemed to hold, which was surprising. I would say I have a much thicker hide as a result of that. I saw facets of AAPG that I didn't expect to see, both good and bad. And I would say that while it is a good idea to have a mission for what you want to do, circumstances often dictate otherwise. And being able to change focus as needed is a good skill. I would say being open to conflict is important. But I would say that the value that I derived from the role was networking and working with different industry colleagues at a different level. And I had the opportunity to work with people from SPE and SEG, and to meet folks from EAGE, which really has helped me broaden my perspectives. In terms of process, I think we've tried to simplify the nomination process. I think it's important to consider that these roles will be there, they'll be waiting for you when you're ready. So I think being ready in terms of your time commitment, your health, your other responsibilities, I think those are important considerations before being nominated. Sometimes there is not an ideal time or unexpected things happen, but it deserves serious consideration because the members expect a lot out of their officers. And not every role is full-time, time-consuming. I mean, the vice presidents can argue with me about that. Treasurer and secretary can argue with me about that. But I would say probably president and editor are the ones that take the most time, and you better be pretty serious if you put your name in. I'll stop there and wait for questions.
Stephanie, do you want to argue?
I guess we're all equally busy in our own right, so I'm not gonna argue, but it's respective, right? How you think about it, right? So yes, I will actually contribute to this discussion by because I was the secretary for the year 2019 to 2021, and so your question was like, what does it entail, to hold the office? So first and foremost, this involves, serving the members. You're there to serve the members, right? And then to ensure that they, as an association, we abide by the AAPG's code of conduct. And then we have to come with some values, and there's certain values that we need to present or bring into the picture is like integrity, honesty, and impartiality. We have to represent all members, and we have to try and bring in as much members as we can into the organization and not just be represent a few, So each in our office, they all have their own responsibilities. Gretchen has described in details, the responsibilities she had as a president, and also Denise has also explained in depth. But I, as a secretary, what it takes is, you're in there, you're taking notes, you're recording the discussions, you're writing minutes, and your notes has to represent what was discussed at the meeting. You have to capture everything that has been said, the thought processes and the way forward. You have to make sure you don't misinterpret anything that you don't want the public to later on come back and say, okay, because whatever you write in there is the collective thought of everyone of the committee, right? So that's number one. So that's a critical part of it, right? And then also you will learn it with other committees. You learn it with the Women Network. You learn it with other groups, maybe like the Astrogeology for like the secretary during my tenure. Those were the groups I learned it with, right? With Women Network, Astrogeology, and the Safety Committee group, right? So you're also working with other committees to make sure that their voices are heard, and then everything that they're doing is in line with with AAPG's conduct. So it's pretty much busy. You have like a full-time job, and at the same time, you're also busy doing this. And there are certain things that can come into play that are not necessarily part of your role, like things that can happen in the society, really, like, or in the world, like low oil gas prices. People are not, you're losing membership, you're dealing with less women, being members, or you're dealing with diversity that are not necessarily part of, our job description, but there are things you really have to deal with, talk about, that you need to address. So sometimes you see things you want to advocate for, and as a secretary, it's not necessarily the role of just the president or VP to bring this things to the table. You can see something that you're really passionate about, like Denise said, when you're applying to be a candidate, you have something that you're vying for. You have a term, you have something that you represent. For me, I represented diversity, and anything that I saw that I needed to discuss, I bring it to the table and they'll be like, hey, Stephanie, fine, we'll listen to you, we'll hear you, bring your thoughts to the table, and we'll discuss it and then they vote on it. So you're not only there just to write notes, but you're also really part of the committee. So that's all I have to say regarding this. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. Dan, do you want to add anything?
Well, I'm not sure how much I can add. I've not held, we'll call it high office within AAPG as Denise, Stephanie, or Gretchen has. So I can't imagine, I can't opine on that. But, as an example, though, as an advisory council member, Part of your duties are really going to be determined by who is the chair of the advisory council at that time. Some chairs are very active, and some chairs expect a lot to be done by the council. Other chairs might be a little more lax and are just happy if they hit their deadlines for the nominations of officers and for the honors and awards. And so, and especially as an advisory council, it's a 3-year term. So you might find yourself busier one year and not so busy the next, and it has more to do with who's in charge of the council at that time. In my case, I was the, as I said, I was the honors and awards chair, and for about a month, you're pretty deep into that process. And as someone who's a consultant, you know, that's good. I don't have to check with my employer. I am my employer, and so you know, I can say, okay, for the next couple of weeks, I'm just really going to be involved in trying to get this meeting that we're going to have to facilitate the honors and awards off the ground. So, but yeah, it could be demanding if you had the wrong, we'll say the wrong position or the wrong boss. It could be extremely demanding.
Do we have any questions from the audience or comments? I'm seeing some comments in the chat that, you know, full employer support and full-time job, that might be something many of us didn't realize or recognize is sometimes, you know, is required to hold these offices. If anyone in the audience has questions, I would say feel free to ask them now, and if not, I'll move on to some other questions that we've developed for the panel. So I think we'll move on probably to one of the, you know, most, what right up there with what does being an officer, you know, entail. What makes a successful nomination package? Why do you think that you were voted into office, or in your experience, why, when you're looking at, and Dan, when you're looking at some of these applications, and I know this is in your opinion, right? You don't exactly know, but what makes us for a strong and hopefully successful applicant? And I would say whoever, Denise, we'll start with you. Thank you.
I want to answer this because not only have I served on the advisory committee and am a recommendation for many, but while I was president and before then, I wrote a lot of nominations. So here's the bottom line. When you decide you want to step up for leadership, and by the way, that is when Gretchen and I call you and say, we'd like you to stand for AAPG, whatever, like Stephanie Woko. We recognize talent in you. If we recognize it, in general, the advisory council and the APG membership also recognizes it. We work with you. I always recommend write your own nomination, read the form, fill in the form, have someone edit the form. That makes the crux of the nomination is that very valuable self-perspective. What makes it even better is when you hand it off to someone else and have them see you through their eyes, because it augments some strengths and it helps and it challenges you on things that you need to develop. So write it, have it edited, have it proofread again, spelling matters, grammar matters, and then network. Let people know you really want this. And on that form, there's a position about what you want to bring to the position. Sit down and figure that out. I always recommend 3 things. You know, you want to work on publications. You want to develop a sustainability program for AAPG to bring it in line with other associations that have strong membership bases based on that. And you want to have more outreach to academia because it is the future of your organization. Pick whatever it is and make sure it's clearly stated in your application. And then the next thing to do is your recommendations. You know who you are. You've written a really great application. It's not your best friend that gets you nominated. I'm sorry. That person helps you write your application. The person that gets you nominated is usually a past president. You need at least one past president that says, I see the potential in this individual. That's name recognition. The second thing you need is somebody, be diverse, my gosh, sections and regions. Make sure you have contacts with their leadership. Those votes matter. And the third, make sure your service record is complete enough. There's no long or short, but it has to do with that you have consistently been involved with the organization for which you want an executive leadership position. I see that a lot. Very talented individuals, no service to AAPG. Much harder hurdle to break. All of you that are part of AAWN, great start. Get out of Women's Network and bring your talent to the other committees, to the divisions. Especially, the divisions are such a great place to prove your leadership and get that name recognition you need. And I will pass it to someone else.
Can I add one thing there?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I don't disagree with anything Denise said. When it comes to recommendation letters, if you remember what Edith had shown us, it's 3 letters. And so be mindful of that, because a letter from Denise it might be compelling. A letter from Gretchen might be compelling, but if that's 2 separate letters, you're down to 1. And so a lot of times you'll see people that will have a letter from a group of past presidents, and they'll have one letter that's assuming that group of past presidents is willing to sign on to that. They'll have one letter from 2, 3, 4 past presidents. They might have, instead of having a letter from your friend Katie, maybe you have a letter from the Women's Network. And so it's from 2, 3, 4, 5 people within that leadership that are willing to sign on to that letter. And those become pretty powerful. And I guess the only other thing to remember is, Denise was specifically talking about nominations for office. Because the one difference between nominations for office and nominations for honors and awards is, more often than not, the nominee for the honor and award has no idea that they're being nominated for the honor and award. It's somebody else that's bringing them forward for that. And so within the honors and awards process, the applicant has very little input that they can lobby for themselves, for lack of a better way to say it. Whereas for the officer candidates, as Denise pointed out well, you can take control of that process to at least hopefully get closer to the success that you're looking for.
Can I also add to that? Okay.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So like Denise said, the first step is you have to be nominated, and usually you will be nominated by either the current or the past president. So in my case, or my experience, Denise was the one that nominated me. Thank you, Denise. I really appreciate that, But apart from them, for you to even be seen to get nominated, like she also said, you really have to be active within the AAPG, and not just active within a certain committee. You have to have like a broad spread of volunteering activities within the association. So for me, I was a member of Visiting Society. So I had gone to several schools, just to talk about, my experience, career progression. I've also gave training on geology, geomodeling workshop. So I had done that. Then I was also very active with the AAPG Women Network Group. And apart from that, I had organized panel sections within ACE and ICE. So I had done that a lot, and I was also part of the technical committee. So I had a broad range of, volunteering activities within the organization, which really exposed me and I was visible. So people already knew who I was, or people had seen my name. So I think probably also made it easier to also buy into, so not just only Dennis nominating me, people that I guess at the other end, maybe like the advisory council, can also say, oh, we know her, we've seen her, and they can also approve it. So if you're interested in becoming part of the office at some point, you really have to start, putting yourself out there, start volunteering from other things, not just only one committee, but be known, and so that people will see how serious you are and how committed you are to the association, And then for as an officer, when I was also when I was nominated, so I also stood for change. I was more like a younger generation. I stood for diversity. I had a different thought process, really. I think it was not something typical that AAPG usually go for, and I really wanted badly to move AAPG towards being a diverse, vibrant organization. So you have to really stand for something if you're sure in the future you really want to be a part of the association. Because only if they know you, only if they see how committed you are, then they will really get you on board. So there's no real procedure, but you just really have to play your part to be able to get seen, and then someone will definitely vie for you. So we wouldn't just wake up and say, hey, like you said, I call my friend, but if no one has seen your work, no one has seen your voluntary activities, there's no way you'll pass through an approval. So that's all I have to say regarding this. Thanks.
Gretchen and then Rebecca.
Oh, yeah, thank you. One observation I'll offer is that there are associations whose nominations require an interview with the selection panel. And as I reflect on the 5 different ECs I served on, I wonder if this would be a useful addition to our process to make sure that people have both the temperament, the knowledge, and the business acumen for the role for which they're being considered. And so I'm hoping we can have a strictly non-scientific poll here. I think there's a red and green reaction button. If you think this is a good idea, please hit the green button. If you don't think it's a good idea, please hit the red button.
Where are the buttons? I can't find it. Reaction, okay.
On the bottom, yep.
I wish there was a maybe button.
So I
I
don't
was
know if
thinking the
it's something-
same.
You're either here or there. You can't be in between.
I can.
And so is anybody able to see the whole set? Oh, here we go. All right. I'm working on a phone, so I'm a little inept. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And so we have 10 greens and I think 2 reds, 1 red, 2 reds. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. And now I've just messed up my phone.
While Gretchen fixes her phone, I will say, when we added the interviews with Curtis during COVID, it was a snapshot into the person and their thought processes side by side. And I found that very informative and another way to broaden our understanding of the leadership that's standing for office.
Rebecca, do you have something to add?
Well, I have something extra to add about the interview. The interview process that I went through for what was posted when I was running for VP sections gives a broad spectrum of the membership a chance to look at an interview. And I think David did a really good job of the questions that he came up with for that interview. So there's something of an opportunity for the membership to see what the candidates have to say and whether or not they have an agenda and whether or not it makes sense. I thought that was a very good process. And I hope everybody took an opportunity to look at everybody's videos. But before that, I was going to say, when you were talking about making yourself known. One of the things that I feel really helped me to, I've been on the advisory council now 3 times as president of 2 different divisions and now as VP sections. And one of the things that helped me have recognition across the sections was that I volunteered to be a judge at the conventions. This sounds like a lot of hard work and you might not really want to do it, but you really meet interesting people in the judging room and in the judging process. And I just want to recommend that to people. I know they're always looking for judges. And if you have an opportunity to judge 1 or 2 sessions, I would say you can meet some very interesting people and expand your network that way.
It's a great
Let me
tip.
quickly say, yeah. Gretchen, I'm going to take my note back because I kind of misinterpreted your question. I thought what I heard was you wanted to introduce another layer of interviews apart from the recommendations, and they're going to interview people as in why do you want to do this and blah blah blah. But no, the interview process of the recordings, I think that's a great idea. So that part I definitely agree. But I just thought you wanted to introduce another layer because I thought that was going to make it difficult for people to come up and say, "Hey, I wanted to volunteer." So
I actually am proposing that within the AC the possibility of having maybe a subset of the AC interview sets of nominees to make sure that they are a good fit and a good temperament for the position. And I say this after seeing
I get
5 different ECs with wildly different behaviors and results.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Denise, I know you have to head out soon. If you
I
have a
do. So I just want to give some closing thoughts. I'm always willing to help anyone that truly wants to stand for office. So know that you have support out there. And 2, correct something on awards. I will be very honest, unless it's one of the highest ranking awards for AAPG, write your own Distinguished Service Award, write your own Young Professional Award, write your own, any award that's out there, you can write it. And you can say, hey, if you're interested, here you go, my information in one little packet. The more proactive you are as an individual, the more successful your nomination in general. Make it easy because writing those packets is time consuming and difficult. Time consuming, it's easy, but time consuming. And I apologize, I have to go, but I have back-to-back meetings all day today. And I appreciate every single one of you that makes AAPG better. So bravo.
Thanks for joining us, Denise. We appreciate it.
Yeah, kind of echoing what Denise just said. Yeah, the nominations for awards are not, you can self-nominate for most of the awards. And so that's usually not the path that is followed. But yeah, you certainly can do that.
But I don't think that has been communicated to the members though. So most members don't know they can self-nominate. So I think that's something maybe we need to start communicating. I know, like you said, it's not the normal part, but that's the way to get more people to win the awards, right? So,
but unfortunately, I do think that, and I don't know if it's why this is, other than it's human nature. I think sometimes when there's 2 or 3 different people nominated for award, if one is self-nominated and the others came from other folks nominating them, the self-nominated one sometimes is looked at a little differently because, you know, you question, okay, why do they, well, you know, is there an ulterior motive here that they want to be an honorary member? Whereas if I nominated Stephanie didn't even know she's being nominated, and nobody questions why that would be.
Gretchen.
Yeah, I'm going to just throw this out there. There are organizations who have performance criteria related to external recognition. So people are judged on for example, how many papers they write, how many patents they generate, how many awards they receive. So I see this as potentially causing a proliferation of self-nominations. I actually like the AAPG system, which tends to favor nominations by third parties. I think in this meeting, it seems like we've really emphasized officer nominations. I think it's worth having another discussion hosted by the Women's Network to focus solely on honors and awards. And part of it is, as I get ready to step into the advisory council, I want to make sure that the honors and awards that AAPG gives speak well for our organization and our values. And I see that within the industry, there are other awards, I'm looking at like the Grit Awards and so on that encourage self-nominations, but I don't think that's been part of the AAPG tradition.
Well, and maybe, Dan, do you have something else to add? Mute it.
Yep, get rid of the mute. Lower the hand. Let's get everything off there. Yes, so having another discussion about honors awards, I think is a fine thing. But I thought I'll just throw a couple quick things out. Gretchen held up that whole packet, and I'm not prepared to because I don't have that in front of me. But the point is, there's a whole lot of discussion about a whole lot of different awards, and the biggest thing I have seen as an AC member is someone nominating someone for the wrong award. And so the problem with that is it's I don't know that it's written anywhere, but within the AC, we do not say, oh, this person who just got nominated is nominated for honorary membership, but they would be a much better fit in distinguished educator. It's not our job to move them to that position. And so there are people that get nominated into the wrong category, and then they never make it out because it's just the wrong category. We've had young professionals nominated who are too old to receive the award. They might be a great candidate. The rules say, I believe it's 35. I may be wrong. I'd have to go back to the rules. But regardless, there's a number, and it's, and that's what it is. And so if you nominate somebody who's older than that, the AC is kind of hamstrung. They might have been a great fit for distinguished service, but that's not where somebody put them. And so that's a real important part of it, I think. So I'll leave it at that.
That's it. Important. I know Dan has mentioned that to us several times, that really reading the descriptions of the awards and making sure you're in the right spot is how you win an award, right? So I see right now it's 1:51 my time, so we have about 9 minutes left, and I think how I'd like to maybe start wrapping up is discuss what the AAPG Women's Network, how we've been facilitating some of the nominations and awards. And Edie, do you want to speak to that a little bit? Why are Edie and I here?
Obviously, because we have nothing else to do, but
Nothing to do.
And of course, we are following in the footsteps of Lee Avery, who has done this with brilliance for a long, long time.
It takes two of us to match one Lee, right?
Right. She suggested two of us could do this. The Women's Network has quite a few members who are willing to help on the nitty-gritty of gathering up all these pieces for a nomination, and helping a candidate with Oh, editing, proofreading, and the Women's Network is willing to be one of the letters, write one of the letters of reference to be part of the actual nomination, because the nomination form that the candidate fills out saying that they realize they can do the assignment as needed, asks who nominated them. And one of the letters can be from the Women's Network. So there are two opportunities that we can get into the process. And I think that the Women's Network is well respected by AAPG. Gretchen is nodding her head. Thank you. So we have examples of prior submissions, and we can get probably a dozen of us regularly work on nominations and nominations for awards. So we're here to help you. Just send a note and or call someone, or whatever it takes. Go to the Women's Network website and ask for help, and we'll be here.
And one other thing we do is, you know, feel free to solicit ideas to us. So-and-so should be nominated. We think, you know, for this position or this award, that's something, and then we can reach out to that person and see if it's something they're actually willing to pursue or not, right? So we're certainly, I think our job is to find people who would like to be nominated and willing to be nominated, and then facilitating the nomination process, as Edith said. So we just wanted to make sure everyone knew why Women's Network and Edie and I were hosting this webinar, and that we're looking for your advice, but also looking, you know, in any suggestions in the future for potential nominees. So we have about 5 minutes left, and I guess, you know, with this whole, we've been talking about what makes a successful applicant and what are some of your experiences. Maybe we could leave any words of advice to future officers or award winners.
I can just say, you know, so the advice I would give is, if you're sure you want to be part of the AAPG office, you have to be willing to do the work. You have to make sure that you're going to be 100% committed. You have the backup of your company, because it can be time consuming, really. So you don't want a situation where you start and then midway you be like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. So you have to be committed to the position, and then also have the support for, or make sure your company understands the length and the width of the responsibilities that you have within the office, because it can be very, very busy, especially depending on the situation of things at that point in time in the industry, and the global, you know, situation at that point in time. It could determine how busy you could get.
Thank you, Stephanie. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I have to say that in pretty much every volunteer role that I've had in AAPG, I've gotten more out of it than I have put into it. I would say it's been very beneficial to my career development. And so I would encourage people that when the time is right, to please allow yourself to be nominated. Nominations will be coming up in the next month or so. I'll be leading the advisory council and working with the counselors to vet the nominations, but I would really like to see an excellent and diverse pool so that we can harness the strength of AAPG at the highest levels of leadership.
Yeah, that's well said, Gretchen.
And speaking as an advisory counselor, at least I think I still am, because my term ended July 1st, and I've thrown my hat into the ring and We'll see if I'm still a counselor. There have been times where folks have been upset with a slate of candidates or a slate of awardees. And the thing to remember within, the advisory council can only do as good as the candidates that are brought to it. And so, and this is both for honors and awards and for the nomination of officers. There's a lot of good potential candidates out there that, as I understand it, have been asked, would you like to be an officer? And their answer is no. And so the advisory council, which is kind of that first hurdle before it goes to the EC for approval, we're only as good as the group that is brought to us. And so that's why you could argue that much more important than the advisory council are folks like you that are bringing the nominations to the advisory council. We're just going to hopefully make a semi-intelligent decision based on what's in front of us.
Rebecca or Edie, would you like to add anything?
We're getting close to the end, and I see a few participants have had to move on to other meetings. So other people can talk, but I will remind you that this is being recorded and will be on YouTube. And there's general agreement that we will do another webinar closer to the time for honors and awards, which is a compared to officer nominations, honors and awards looks like minestrone soup. Rebecca, I see you.
Well, I just wanted to say that I was nominated for VP sections by the Women's Network, and I really appreciate that opportunity. And I'm not sure that I got a letter of recommendation from the Women's Network, because I thought since they nominated me, that was okay. I didn't specifically ask for one, and if that was a mistake, I apologize. But it was a very smooth process, and I appreciate how professional it all was.
And it worked out for you regardless, right?
Well, yes, yes, it's been wonderful so far.
Good. Well, we were happy. I know Edie was doing a lot of the legwork last summer. So
Yeah.
just to acknowledge Edie for all of her hard work. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Great. Well, I think it's 2 o'clock. So what I would say is I will end the recording now, but certainly if anyone would like to further discuss any of these topics or get in touch with Edie or myself, we'd welcome that to answer any questions, or again, if you would like to be nominated or know of anyone who would like to be nominated, that's something we're looking for too, and we can help with that process. Rebecca.
If somebody has something to say to that, I'll shut up. But I have I got a request from someone in the Eastern section for their upcoming section meeting, and they're looking for an afternoon program designed for students that would give them a way to bring students into a specific session. And I don't know if anybody here, I can't point my finger at who's from Eastern section. I think I know, but I'm not absolutely sure. That they asked me for some ideas, and I suggested the Women's Network might be able to put on a program, and I didn't throw anybody's name under the bus, but that if anybody's interested in finding out more about that, I can give you the name of the person who asked me for help.
I know Dan.
Okay, you're going to have to.
Edie.
Edie and Katie are our Eastern section, as is
Okay.
Dan.
Well, I think some sort of session about changing careers and changing focus. So because they're worried that it's just students are going to think, well, this is just all about petroleum. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that, you know, something for students that would show some different perspectives. For example, ED policy, getting involved in keeping people informed about policy issues. And Dan, you know, you might be able to bring something. It might be sort of like a panel discussion. So if the three of you are interested, send me an email and I will happily give you the name of the woman who asked me for help. And I just don't happen to have my email open right now, or I could tell you who that was.
Sure. So why don't, if you have, you can send it along to Edie maybe, and then we can talk about it offline. That sound good,
Okay.
Edie?
Thank you. Sorry to go off track here, but
No, this is what's a fun part about these meetings too. So, well,
More questions or comment? Maybe one more last question or comment? We invite.
Yeah, hello everyone. Yeah, my name is China Mary from Nigeria. Yeah, it's evening here now. So I'm really excited to be in this program. I'm still an undergraduate student of geology. However, I hope to serve AAPG at a higher level in the future and get nominated for one of the awards in the future. So I'm really glad to get the insight to help me to form my strategic path to achieving that. So thank you, everyone.
you're welcome. All right. Well, I think it's time to end the meeting. And certainly thank you to all of our panel members very much. We appreciate you taking time out of your day. And to all of the audience, again, thank you too for taking time out of your day to learn more about the AAPG Women's Network and some of the offers to positions and the nomination process. And we'll be in touch in the fall, maybe, about scheduling in another webinar for awards.
Thanks, guys, for organizing. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks
Bye,
for
everyone.
including me on the panel.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye, everyone.
All right, have a great
Bye.
day.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a
Stephanie.
good day.
Thank you, Gretchen. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Rebecca. Thank you, Edie.
bye. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.